Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Awesemo Nhl Dfs Strategy Show. You're looking at a familiar face in a new spot here today. I am Michael Clifford, and I am hosting for today. I can't believe it either. Jake is around, but he's just got the day off from hosting the video show here today. But joining me, making his second appearance, I believe, is the GOAT, Josh Harris. Josh, how are we doing today?
Doing pretty well. I just need to apologize to our audience. I mean, if you came to see, Jake's amazing jaw structure and perfect hair and tan, you're stuck with my giant head and Cliffy. So,
I feel real bad for our YouTube chat. Our YouTube chat's going to be a little bit quieter today than it normally is without Jake here and all the people fawning over him, right?
Yeah, I mean, and then what he did with Tom Wilson.
Thanks for the Tom Wilson. All right, before we get to everything here, I want to let you guys know we have a giveaway going on over on Twitter. So if you head to our new Twitter account, Awesemo Nhl Dfs, look for a tweet with a giveaway for a free week of Awesemo NHL here. All you have to do is like, follow, and retweet while replying with the name of a player playing tonight. And if he scores a goal, you will get one free week of Awesemo NHL. It's a great deal. Like I said, all you have to do is log on to Twitter, head to our Twitter account, Awesemo Nhl Dfs, look for the tweet that will where you have to respond with the name of a player playing tonight. It could be anybody. It could be Gallagher. It could be Miller. It could be Austin Matthews, anybody. If they score, you get a free week of NHL. So head on over to Twitter. Check out what we got going on over at Awesemo Nhl Dfs. All right, let's talk about last night, Josh. Josh, how'd you do? Did you hit anything big?
No, I went with the Rangers second line, and I can't help but laugh because every time they gain the zone, they pass it out to the point, and Jack Johnson would just fire howitzers all over the ice, like into the stands, like into people's shins, and I was just behind the eight ball. And then I used Colorado one. I didn't swap late because I fell asleep, and they didn't really, overwhelm the Kings like I thought they would. So back to the drawing board tonight. I like this slate, so hopefully win some money.
Yeah, last night was kind of a weird one because there was that Florida-Chicago game that got so much ownership, and then Carter Verhaeghe just kind of went nuclear, but Verhaeghe wasn't very high owned. He was single digits, so it didn't really kill anybody. But Patrick Hornqvist up at like 25% certainly did a lot of damage. I didn't do too well. I made a little bit of money, nothing crazy. Mackenzie Blackwood had himself a game last night, 47 saves. It's something we talk about often here. The cheap goalies that are going to see a lot of volume quite often those are the guys that are going to win GPPs. It's not the guys that are, 8,000, 8,200, are they?
No, and then, Brian Elliott with a random 40 save shutout of the Sabres. So if you didn't have Blackwood or Elliott, I mean, most of the other goalies were just traps. I think Washington goalie put up 2 points in the overtime loss. I mean, Casey DeSmith did okay, but other than that, everything else was kind of rough.
Yeah, it was a pretty rough night for goalies. But again, that's why we like our cheap goalies here at Awesemo. They see a lot of volume. Even if they lose, they can still do something good for you. So there's at least one goalie that fits that bill in the slate tonight. We'll get to him a little bit later. It is quite the slate we have. We have 5 games on the slate here tonight. We have one really clear game where there's going to get a lot of ownership, and it's the first game we're going to talk about, Edmonton, Toronto. I just want to get your thoughts just in general, because you typically run one lineup. What do you do on a short slate where you know that you can't just stack 2 even strength lines because you're going to get duped? Like, how do you differentiate? How do you get a little bit different from everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, and this slate is especially because you have the 2 McDavid Matthews who are going to be super chalk. Now they're playing each other, and they're the only early game, so there's going to be some pretty heavy concentrated ownership there. So, I mean, for me, on short slates, like in years past, what I would do is fade like if Ovechkin, for example, was on the slate, I would fade Ovechkin and just hope he didn't have like a 3-point game. You kind of just hoped and prayed he only had like a 3 shot on goal, no point game, and you try to find like a lower owned power play stack or something like that. But I haven't built yet today, but I feel like I'm going to be fading this first game, and I could be dead before the other 4 games even start.
But that's the thing, right? Is that if this is a low scoring, if it is a 3-1 game with some spread out scoring or something like that, you'll probably lap half the field by the time that game's done. So that that's the double-edged sword that we play. I think one thing people kind of underutilize is using depth lines in smash matchups, right? It's getting away from Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and maybe rostering Tavares and Nylander, who should be much lower owned, or going down even further to somebody like Kerfoot and Mikheyev or something like that if you want to fit in McDavid or expensive stacks elsewhere. So that's another thing to look towards, is that, just because a team is in a great spot doesn't mean you only have to use their best players. They have other players on the team that can score as well. So let's get to that game anyways. We have Edmonton going into Toronto. Edmonton has a 3 implied goal total. We have a 3.6 with Toronto. There is going to be a lot of ownership in that game. Just looking at the ownership at our own website at Awesemo, we have Austin Matthews first, Mitch Marner second, Connor McDavid 5th. So three of the top 5 spots in ownership from this game. If you look at our top stacks, the top 2 stacks are also from this game, each top line. So there's clearly going to be a lot of ownership here. You said you're fading this game probably in your one lineup. If you're making 20 lineups or 150 lineups, how much of this game would you get into this? And what of interest is there from both sides beyond just the top lines?
Yeah, so Toronto, the first few games at home, they've been sending out Matthews against the top comp. So it's probably going to be Matthews against McDavid. And that McDavid line has been bad defensively. They've been getting caved. And the Matthews-Marner pairing, whether it's with Thornton or with Hyman, their numbers have been ridiculous. I would imagine the Matthews-Marner pair is going to garner the most ownership. In MME, like if I was building 20, I think you have to make a stand here. I think you have to be way under the field or way over the field. Because if you're just at the field and they go off at 30% ownership and you have 30%, like you're kind of just behind. You have to beat those 30%. So if you go way under and they bust, you have some leverage. You go way over the field and they go nuclear, I think you're in a pretty good spot. So for me, if in MMA, I think I would go heavy Toronto 1. I'd have a good amount of the Tavares Nylander. And I think for me on the Edmonton side, I would try to, do some power play for Edmonton. And I wish Jesse Puljujarvi, I'm going to butcher his name. I know you guys love my pronunciations, but Jesse Puljujarvi should be on that top line over Zach Kassian. I mean, I don't know what Edmonton's doing. Like, he already got kicked off the team last year, went to Sweden, produced there. Now he's coming back playing on the third line. I don't get it.
Yeah, that's something that was mentioned in our premium Slack, and that's something that comes with our Awesemo package, is that the Edmonton coach flat out said that if the team doesn't play better, that changes are going to be coming to the lineup. And I'm glad that you mentioned Puljujarvi because I've thought he's looked great so far. I write about season-long fantasy hockey at Dobber Hockey, and I wrote about him for tonight. The second game of the season, I believe, he led the team in controlled zone entries, which is a great indicator of transition of driving offense. And he's also leading the team in shot attempts per 60 minutes. It's just that he's stuck down playing 13, 14 minutes with Kyle Turris. But I think this is the night to one-off Puljujarvi. I really do, because if Edmonton gets down 2-0 early, I can't see them sticking with Dominic Cahoon on the second line and Zach Kassian on the top line. They're gonna definitely have to make some changes here. So I don't mind one-offing Puljujarvi tonight. I'm kind of on the fading Edmonton boat. Like, I think that matchup against Matthews, Marner, and Thornton is a lot tougher than people kind of realize. And I know that McDavid is kind of matchup proof, but like you said, you almost have to make a stand on short slates like this with so many elite players on the slate. My stand is going to be I have very little, if none, Edmonton in my 20 lineup. So that's kind of the way I'm going there. Edmonton is expecting Ethan Bear back on the top pair with Darnell Nurse, so he's viable, as a cheap defenseman. What do you think about the goalies here? I'm kind of digging Koskinen. If Toronto does have a lot of shot volume and there is a lot of ownership, what do you think about Koskinen? Are you starting either goalie? Is it too scary to start Koskinen tonight?
I mean, at the open of the show, we talked about, these cheaper road dogs that see volume that win you money. If I was doing 20 lineups, I definitely would have a few. But for me, both sides, Freddie being 8,100 against McDavid kind of scares me. For me in my one lineup, I think I would just go to them if I was correlating with the team. Like, if I'm going to stack Toronto, I'm going to use Freddie. If I'm going to stack Edmonton, I'm going to use Mikko.
Okay, fair enough. I just, I think there's a world where this is a 2-0 or a 3-0 game for Edmonton, and Koskinen can kind of skate out with the highest, fantasy point total. But I mean, it is kind of worrisome going up against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Anything for defensemen here? I mean, Tyson Barrie, his price just doesn't seem to go up, even though he's getting all those minutes with McDavid. Morgan Riley's still at $6K. Mikko Lehtinen was running the second power play unit for Toronto in their last game, and he's fairly cheap. So what are you liking here for defensemen out of this game?
I mean, Mikko Lehtinen played like 6 minutes last game, and the Leafs, I think, are going 11-7 again. But so his time on ice worries me a little bit. But if he's going to increase his time on ice, I think, going forward, I think as a power play 2 option, I think maybe not on this slate, but maybe down the line. Obviously, if you're going to use Matthews and Marner correlating with Riley, I prefer, using those 3 instead of putting Jumbo in with them. Jumbo does nothing for me. His price is creeping up, 4,000. If he's going to have a multi-point game, so be it. I'll live to see another day. On the Edmonton side, I like, if you're going to do the power play, obviously you want Barrie. I think, Nurse or Bear on the top line as a one-off is okay. But other than that, defensemen don't really interest me too much.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you that I don't have a lot of defensemen out of this game. I do like 2,800 Ethan Bear. If he gets back up to 21, 22 minutes or whatever, that's a fine price. Like you said, Lehtinen, the ice time is a concern. Jake Muzzin for me is a guy that I always seem to he finds his way into my lineups because I want to save some money at defense. And he's that, multi-shot, multi-block threat. We talk about the combo meal here at Awesemo, guys that can put up 5 shots or 3 blocks in a game. He's definitely one of them. So Muzzin is a guy that I find myself using just to save some money. But I'm kind of with you. I don't have a lot of defensemen out of this game. It's basically just Riley, Muzzin, in Bear. I don't even have much Darnell Nurse, which is saying something because, Nurse could be a shot blocking machine tonight if the Leafs are really finding their gear. I don't have anything else out of this game. Do you have anything else?
The only other thing I say is this is a Barry revenge game if you like going down narrative street. But other than that, that's about it.
Yeah, there is the Tyson Barrie revenge narrative. Our Slack chat was saying earlier he wants revenge for Toronto Maple Leafs ruining his career. Not sure I go that far just yet, but there is that revenge narrative. I don't buy into it, but if you do, there you go. All right, we're going to move along. We're going to move to San Jose and St. Louis. San Jose opened with a 2.6 implied goal total. That has fallen a bit through the day. St. Louis opened at 3.5, and that has also fallen a little bit through the day. So it appears the public isn't expecting a ton of goal scoring out of this game, but there is a new line that is of interest here for San Jose. So, Josh, can you break us down why we should have interest in the San Jose Sharks here tonight, even though there's only a 2.4 implied goal total?
Yeah, so what they did was on the second line, they put Timo Meier with Hertl and Kane. And as we were talking before the show, you were saying that when they did that on Monday, Couture saw 8 shifts with LeBanc and Donato, or it might have been Leonard in that game. I forget which, but in 8 of those 8 shifts, Ryan O'Reilly still saw Couture in 7 of them. So if you're thinking that, that's going to hold true, Ryan O'Reilly is going to be matched up against Couture, that leaves, the Hertl, Kane, Timo Meier line to go against the Shen line, which, favors really in this game both those second lines. The one thing that does worry me is that second line is 19-3. So if you're playing any sort of McDavid or Matthews or any, those expensive lines, it's going to be really hard to fit them in. So you'd have to go a different route if you're going to use that full line. That top line with Couture is 12,900. But they are going to see the Ryan O'Reilly line. So, O'Reilly loves to grind these type of games into a halt. But so for me, I'm going to go to that second line. I don't know if I'm going to do it tonight, but Hertl Kane is one of my favorite pairings in the NHL. A few seasons ago when they were with Jonas Donskoy and they were San Jose 3, I use them all the time. It does worry me that the goal total in this game is going down. So for me, on the Shark side, I may fade. And I like the Blues. They have the highest implied total on the slate besides Toronto, and maybe Vegas, but I don't think people like playing them just because the top line they have Sanford, second line they have Kyrou, so they don't correlate very well power play wise. But it is Party Marty Jones in net, and the Sharks are just awful defensively. So I think this is a spot where you can go back to the Blues.
Yeah, I think there should be interest in both sides. You're right, and yeah, that matchup of O'Reilly versus Couture is kind of important to us succeeding here tonight, because if they decide to switch it up and put O'Reilly out against Meier, Kane, and Hertl, that could hurt us. One of the reasons why we're high on the Meier, Kane, Hertl line is that Hertl is a good playmaker and a shooter, and Kane and Meier are both just great volume shooters. So, this is a situation where even if that line only combines for 1 goal, you could get enough shots where they'll drag you to the cash line in the GPP, because they don't need 3 goals to put up 20 DK points. They just don't. They have that type of shot volume in them. Whether that happens against St. Louis kind of remains to be seen. As far as like the depth goes here, like Jordan Kyrou, we talked just before the show about him just roasting Erik Karlsson in their last game. And you said about how people don't really like to play the one-offs. I mean, we talked earlier about how Carter Verhaeghe was like 9% or something like that last night playing next to Barkov. So Um, in that kind of situation, would you be less like if we were to say that David Perron is going to be 20% tonight, but Jordan Kyrou is only going to be 5%. How do you weigh what the upside is and minutes are with ownership? Like how do you deal with that like on a per game or a per day basis?
Well, the thing with Kyrou is he's only 2,800, and his line mates are on power play 1. So that line as a whole is super cheap. And what do you realistically need from Kyrou to hit value there at 3%? If he has even if he doesn't get on the score sheet, he has 3 shots on goal and 2 block shots, he's probably going to exceed value. And if he hits the score sheet, you're, way ahead there. This may be a popular landing spot. I haven't looked at the Blues ownership projections, but this may be a popular line with Toronto. And I think you have to go with the full line there because I think a Shen Schwartz little mini combo is going to be pretty popular. So if you want to lower their ownership percentage, even if these guys come in, I don't know, just say over 10%, the Kyrou will be 6-7%, and it'll drop the full line as down to whatever it is, because I doubt many people will full stack this line.
I think that's a pretty good point to make, is that, that Shen Schwartz duo is cheap. You can put him in with Kyrou and, like you said, get much lower ownership than other people that just do Shen Schwartz and Parayko or Shen Schwartz and Krug or something like that. So yeah, that's a very good point. And it's something that, you don't necessarily, like we said earlier with Jake Muzzin, it doesn't have to be the third forward. You could, instead of Morgan Rielly, you can go to Jake Muzzin. Here, instead of Torrey Krug, you can use Colton Parayko. It doesn't give you that power play correlation, but it does give you that differentiation with lower ownership. So those are different ways to go in this game. And speaking of defensemen, I got to bring him up, Justin Falk. I almost feel sick bringing him up. But the guy scored 2 goals in the last game, but it's not that. It's the fact that he's playing 23, 24 minutes a night at 3,500. You have Colton Parayko playing about as many minutes, but he's over $1,000 more expensive. And then you have Torrey Krug, Erik Karlsson in the mid-5s, and Brent Burns just under $7,000. So we have lots of options actually here on the blue line. What do you like outside? Let's say outside of Brent Burns, what do you like amongst the defense options in this game?
Okay, so if I'm going the Sharks or even a one-off, I don't mind Erik Karlsson. I still think for the amount he's on the ice for 5,500 and power play 1, I think you can go there correlating or as a one-off. So the first game of the season, he was on the ice 32 minutes. I don't expect that every night. He's gone down, but he's still averaging 28 minutes a night. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, I'm fine with him as a one-off or a correlation with the Sharks. Torrey Krug for me would be a Blues correlation only. He hasn't really done much at the start of the season. He's a little bit pricey, 5,400 for not. I don't think he has a point yet this season. So if I'm going to one-off, I'm going to go with Colton Parayko. Look at that. I learned that one. 4,700 power play 2. He's on the ice a ton too. Or even Justin Falk, which just feels dirty, because I remember, a few years ago, we're all yelling, why doesn't Carolina have, Dougie as the power play quarterback? Why is it Falk? The one thing with Falk is he's coming off that big game. He may garner some, inflated ownership for that. So I may look elsewhere. And if you really need a punt, Vinny Dunn, 2,900 power play 2. Don't love him. But, cheap option on the power play. Same with Mario Ferraro, 3,300 power play 2. I don't know how many minutes the Sharks' second power play is getting, but he has been getting a ton of ice time because he's playing primarily with Burns.
Yeah, that's one guy that we talked about before the show that, he's not necessarily like a true punt, but if you need a cheap defenseman, Mario Ferraro has been playing about 22, 23 minutes a game, and he's 3,300, I believe. So, yeah, good cheap defenseman there. As far as goalies, I'm assuming you're not in on Martin Jones. Jordan Binnington is fairly expensive, and the Blues don't allow a ton of shots. So I don't imagine you have either of these goalies in your lineup, do you?
No, I mean, I wish Binnington was a little bit cheaper just because the Sharks won last game. I was hoping to get him like 7,900. I don't want to pay 8,300 for Binnington coming off a poor performance. And as sick as it sounds, like I may consider Martin Jones. I mean, I probably won't end up playing him because there's another goalie in a better spot right around the same price, which we'll get to in a couple games. But the one thing I do worry about Martin Jones is, the Blues just grinding to a halt and him giving up 3 goals and only having 18 saves. But I don't like Martin Jones, but for a price play, one of those lower owned who may see volume, I do have to consider it in GPPs when correlating.
Yeah, I will say I do. Out of my 20 lineups, I have Martin Jones in 2 of them. So we're going 10% Martin Jones tonight. I don't feel good about it. Trust me. Like, it's just one of those things. It's a $7,100 goalie that, like you said, could see some volume if the Sharks aren't on their defensive game here tonight. So we're not recommending go all in on Martin Jones, obviously, but like we mentioned at the top of the show, sometimes you just have to go with those cheap goalies and pray that it works out. So Martin Jones, calling Dr. Jones, wake up now. Josh, you're an MMA guy, aren't you?
I am.
You are an MMA guy. How'd you do on today's slate?
I actually did pretty well until the main event. I had Magny in my lineup and Chiesa won, but it didn't kill me too much. I 3x today, so no complaint going forward there.
Well, if anybody wants to get our MMA projections and our other projections, we have a great promo going on at Awesemo right now. Promo code Connor, CONOR. Head on over to Awesemo right now, and you can get access to all the great Awesemo tools and content for almost every DS sport out there for $29.95 per week. It includes access to all our premium content and tools, including player projections, ownership projections, premium Slack channel, and a whole lot more. We have an MMA DFS special running right now for UFC 257 for the Dustin Poirier-Conor McGregor main event. Use the promo code Connor, that's Connor with one N, like Conor McGregor, to activate a $2.57 MMA weekly pass for the big fight. We have tons of great premium MMA DFS content here at Awesemo, including the Top Fighters tool and UFC Pro plays from our MMA team of experts. So check them out today for less than a cup of coffee. This offer will be valid through January 23rd, so head to Awesemo right now, promo code Connor, that's Connor with one N, to get our all-access pass. All right, moving to our third game of the night, and this game, this is interesting to me for a couple of reasons. One, because of the ownership. Two, because it's a small slate and there's only so many spots to go. We have Minnesota going into Anaheim. Minnesota is sitting with a 3 implied goal total. Anaheim is sitting at 2.6. Both those totals have come up through during the day, as this was an over-under that opened at 5, and it's up to 5.5 now. So people are apparently expecting a few more goals than Vegas was initially. Anaheim's has a real problem this year, and it's not just the fact that they don't have a ton of skilled players. There's other issues with how they're deploying those players. Why don't you talk a bit about that, Josh?
Yeah, so we were talking before the show, and we're looking at the Ducks top line: Dan Tonheim, Adam Henrique, Jacob Silfverberg. Right? If you look at their time on ice so far this season, Henrique's averaging 16 minutes a game, Heinen 14 minutes a game, Silfverberg 16 minutes a game. You go to the second line: Sonny Milano, Ryan Getzlaf, Ricard Raquel. Sonny Milano 12 minutes a game so far this season. Getzlaf 15 minutes a game so far this season. Raquel 16 minutes a game. So what it seems like they're doing is they're just running like 4 third lines. No one's getting a big bump time on ice. So it makes it really hard to like the Ducks skaters tonight. And as much as I really want to use like a Henrique one-off or a Silfverberg one-off because they're cheap on power play one, I just can't do it. I mean, for 15 minutes, you need them to, really go nuts. And this is a low total. So, and all these matchups like favor the Wild here. So for me, I'm kind of off the Ducks except for, defensemen because, Shattenkirk, 3,500 power play 1. He's on the ice. He saw 23 minutes opening night, second game, 24 minutes. Last game, he was 29 minutes. So 3,500 power play 1, seeing, 29 minutes. That's where I'm going to go. Cam Fowler, maybe. He's underpriced. 3,000 on power play 2. He's seeing, 22, 23 minutes a night. So for me, from the Duck side, I think I'm interested in the goalie and I'm interested on a couple one-off defensemen. But as far as, skaters, I'm probably going to be full fade there.
Yeah, it's just that ice time. Ice time is such a big thing. It's why Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews are coveted here tonight. It's not just the matchup. It's the fact that they're playing 23, 24 minutes a night. If you're getting 15, 16 minutes from Ryan Getzlaf, and this is a tough matchup. Minnesota's a good defensive team. Like, I get that, like I said, there are only so many spots to go here on the slate tonight. There are only so many cheap spots as well. And it's not like, Arizona going into Vegas is a great spot either. So, I understand why people might be wanting to use Anaheim, but I'm kind of with you where, like, I might two-man stuff, like Shattenkirk and Silverberg or something like that. But I can't see myself full stacking a whole line. I just don't see the upside for this team almost in any matchup this year. It's just, they just don't have the offense. I mean, maybe I saw Trevor Zegras, who was a star at the World Juniors. He had, I think, 3 points in their first AHL game, so I can't imagine he'll be long until he gets to the NHL. And at that point, maybe it's a different story. But yeah, Anaheim's just kind of a wasteland right now. I agree with you on Shattenkirk. It's just so many minutes at a cheap price. He's fine. I'll definitely be using John Gibson in that. We'll talk about the goalies in a minute. But as far as the Anaheim forwards go, I think the only forwards I have in my lineup are some Henrique one-offs just for power play usage, and that's about it. The Minnesota side is interesting to me because a lot of their forwards by our ownership projections are in the single digits. Like, we have Kaprizov just under 5%. We have Parise, I think, a little bit higher. We have Fiala at about 8%. Or Fiala's been bumped up now. Fiala's up to 12%, but that's still fairly low for a 5-game slate. I kind of like that second line that they've got brewing now with Nick Bonino and Kevin Fiala, especially where Bonino's on the top power play unit. That was a thing that they did in their last game. They booted Matt Dumba off the top power play unit and put Bonino there. So it's Bonino, Fiala, Kaprizov, Parise, and Spurgeon. So now you have 2 guys on that second line on the power play. So there's a little bit more power play correlation. Bonino is super cheap. So, you can 3-man stack for relatively cheap. Fiala has just been a shooting machine this year. There's no Anaheim matchup that really worries me. So I see Fiala is going to be higher owned tonight than Kaprizov. I'm just going to kind of choke on the ownership, and I'm going to be using Fiala and Bonino here tonight along with Spurgeon. Capo Kakinen is starting in net for Minnesota. He's supposed to be a good goalie. He's supposed to be the goaltender of their future. Cam Talbot's kind of there as a buffer until Kakinen is ready. So, this isn't some guy that they just plucked out of Finland or some fourth string goalie or something like that. This guy's actually supposed to be legitimately good. So, not too high on Minnesota. I might have some Kakinen here tonight. Definitely in on Fiala and Bonino. I'm definitely in on that line. Minnesota, yeah, probably just Henrique. Maybe someone off Shattenkirk, and definitely some John Gibson. But yeah, this is just a game where, I think it opened at a 5 total for a reason, right?
I'm with you.
Yeah, sorry. No, the goalies here, Kakinen and Gibson, they're actually fairly closely priced. Kakinen 7,600, Gibson 7,300. Is there a particular side that you would prefer on this, like in this matchup, knowing that, Gibson's probably not going to be, Gibson might actually be kind of highly owned because, he's at home in a good matchup, in a decent matchup, coming off a great performance at a reasonable price. So do you like either goalie here? And, which side would you take if you had to take one?
I like both goalies in this game. I think Gibson's going to be way higher owned because no one knows who Capo Kakinen is. I'll work on that for you guys. Don't worry. But 7,600, I think, he's kind of in that mid-range there where people are going to go down the Gibson or they're going to go up to like an 8K safer cash style goalie. So I think, Kakinen 7,600 could be a sneaky low and good play tonight because, the Ducks are bad. Like they're just bad. And if their best players are only getting 14, 15, 16 minutes a night, I want the goalie there too. And Gibson's a great play too because Minnesota's been generating a ton of shots. And, Gibson's one of the best goalies in the NHL with no help. But he shut him out last game, so there's going to be some recency bias there, but I don't mind going back at 7,300.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think there's a case to be made for both goalies here. Like Kakinen at 7,600, I think that's just too cheap for this matchup. Like, I don't think you'll see very many goalies priced at 7,600 against Anaheim this year. So I'm kind of digging Kakinen. And yeah, like Gibson could see a lot of volume, shut him out the last game, saw what he's capable of. So I'm in on both goalies as well. If I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Gibson just because I know more about him. And I think he'll see more volume. But yeah, I think both are good plays. All right, we're going to move along to the next game. Montreal is going into Vancouver. Montreal is currently sitting with a 3.4 goal total. It's actually moved up through the day from 3.2. Vancouver's has also moved up from 2.9 to 3.1. This over-under has moved from 6 to 6.5. That tells me we're going to see some ownership here tonight, and that's not surprising considering, Montreal is relatively cheap, so you can fit them in with the Tavares and the Matthews and the McDavids of the world. And there is a lot of good offensive talent in this game. So break it down for us here, Josh. What do you see in this Montreal-Vancouver game?
Yeah, so I think this is one of the most important games on the slate besides the Maple Leafs and Oilers, just because there's so many routes this game could go. There's ownership coming in. And one of the things I look at, as you do as well, as you've said on previous shows, I look at our boy AD's line matching, and if you want to do that, it's a perfect complement to an Awesemo sub. You can DM me, you can DM Cliffy, you can DM the gnarly rad dude, get a nice monthly price there on the line matching. But he has the Pettersson line going against the Danault line, and if that's the case, Montreal 1's going to run all over them. So which leaves the Horvats going against Suzuki, and that's just going to be all over the place too, which probably favors Montreal too. The Suzuki Anderson just been mowing down people, but the Horvat Pearson Hoglander line is cheap. They don't really correlate too well on the power play. Horvat's on the first one, Hoglander, Pearson on the second power play. Yeah. The one thing that does concern me is fading Vancouver 1, just because they're probably going to get low ownership. Vancouver's been bad to start this season, but they're fully correlated on the power play. They're only 16-4, which is a nice mid-range line. They're probably going to have low ownership. And I have FOMO about them just going nuclear tonight at low ownership and winning people a lot of money, and then everyone hopping back on the bandwagon. But for me, that's go ahead.
No, sorry, I was just going to jump in. That's the one thing I wasn't on Vancouver, but the one thing that might get me back on them is the ownership. That's all I want to say. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, if I'm quote unquote ranking who I want to play in this game, I think it's probably the Montreal side, Montreal 1, then Montreal 2, then Vancouver 2, then Vancouver 1. But I'm not going to, if you're MMEing, I definitely want some of that Vancouver 1. They're fully correlated. They're cheap. But yeah, if they're matched up with, Pettersson Danault, I want, the Montreal top line for sure.
Yeah, that's because, we talk about the Montreal top line, and the reason why we're so reverent about them is their numbers are just off the charts great. Gallagher, Danault, Tatar, we have the sample at over 600 minutes. Their expected goals for sits at 3.3 expected, which is like, it's 2-3 standard deviations above the mean. Like, it's just crazy how good that is. And then 2.11 expected goals against per 60 minutes. That's below league average. So, and their goals results follow the expected goals results. This isn't a line that, generates a lot of high expected goals totals, but doesn't actually finish. They actually score a lot of goals. Like, Phil Deneau, if I'm not mistaken, was top 10 or top 15 in 5-on-5 scoring in the league last year, like amongst everybody. So that's kind of why we revere this line so much, is that they are just flat out one of the best 5-on-5 lines in the league. The catch with every Montreal stack is, like you said, one, the power play correlation just isn't great. Two, their power play just usually isn't very good. They seem to be sticking with trying to set up Shea Weber for a bunch of slap shots. And if you actually look at the goals Shea Weber scored on the power play this year, he banked it off a player from behind the goal line. So, like, what they're trying to do with that power play seems kind of mismatched. That's kind of why I like, the guys off the second power play a little bit better. Alex Romanov's price has come up a lot. But like Gallagher, Tatar, Anderson, Kotkaniemi, that is a pretty good power play unit. The problem is that, obviously they're spread all across the lines. But, you can stack the Montreal top line with Romanov for fairly cheap and get 3 out of 4 guys on the second power play unit. They'll play their fair share of minutes because Montreal is one of those teams that does, kind of split minutes. Like, they don't get, you won't see any forwards play 20 or 21 minutes here tonight. So, I'm with you on Montreal 1 and 2. I do have both of them. I have 0 Vancouver here tonight, and like that is concerning because, like you mentioned, they could absolutely go nuclear here tonight. It's just I hate just using the eye test, but just I've watched 2 of Vancouver's games so far this year, and Pettersson just hasn't looked good. Even with JT Miller back for their last game, he just hasn't looked like the normal Pettersson. Like, I don't want to say it's confidence or something like that. It could just be, we got to remember that the season started with a week, a week of training camp, 10 days of training camp, coming right out of the holidays with no exhibition games. It's not reasonable to assume that every player is going to be 100% ready to go as soon as the season starts under those scenarios. Like, even under ideal scenarios, there are slow starters every year. So I think, we probably need to back off Pettersson a little, give him a little bit of time, but I think it's also the perfect time to take advantage of him playing poorly. So that's why I think, I'm with you on Montreal 1. They should be able to do well here in this matchup tonight. I want to get down to the blue line because I think honestly, other than talking about the low ownership for Vancouver 1, I think the blue line is the most interesting part of this game because there are a ton of quote-unquote expensive defensemen. There are 7 guys from this game over $4,000 and 3 over $5,000. So there are, I don't know why Joel Edmonds is $4,100, but I'm going to go with it.
Your boy.
Please don't. So talk to us about the defensemen in this game. You have Weber and Petrie on one power play unit, but Weber and Sherratt skate together. You have Hughes on a power play unit, but he doesn't skate with Schmidt. So, none of these guys are all fully correlated, but, clearly they're good plays. So how are you picking amongst these defensemen tonight? What order would you rank them? Are any guys too expensive? What do you see here?
Okay. So if I'm going to use Montreal 1, I'm going to use Romanov just because he correlates on the power play. Montreal 2, I'd probably use Petrie over Weber. Petrie's $300 cheaper. $5,800 is getting pretty pricey for Petrie here. It does give me a little bit of trepidation. Weber is one of those plays like Jake and I talked about the other night that you're going to get at super low ownership. He could, have a couple bombs on the power play, score a couple goals at like 4-6% ownership, and win you a GPP. But 6,100 for, how old is he now? Like 73. Like, I don't want to play like a 73-year-old, firing bombs from the point all game. And then, the left side of the Montreal defense doesn't really do anything for me. Although Sherratt on with Weber does see a ton of minutes. So if I'm going to punt, I think, that's fine with 3,100. On the Vancouver side, the one thing that I did see was Tyler Myers is now with Nate Schmidt, and Tyler Myers is 3,100. So a big bump in his minutes. He's gone from 17 the first couple nights to 22, 23. So if you're going to punt there, 23 minutes at 3,100 is not bad. He's not seeing power play time, but for 3,100, you don't need a lot there. Quinn Hughes, if you're using Vancouver 1, I think is the appropriate correlated play there. Alex Edler under 5,000. I think for the amount of minutes he sees, he's at 20. He's about 20, so his minutes have come down from last season. It's only 3 games, but he was up 23, 24 last season. So 4,900 is okay. And he's playing with Jalen Chatfield, who's min priced. I'm not really sure why he's playing, so maybe I would just avoid that pairing altogether.
Yeah, that kind of tells me that Edler's almost like the third pairing guy now, right? Because it seems like Schmidt and Myers is going to be kind of the shutdown pair, with Hughes being that transitional pair, and then you'll have Edler and Chatfield on the third pair. So yeah, it does kind of seem like that's going to be the third pair here tonight. Lots of good defensemen. I have more Weber than Petrie because I'm with you. I think people go more to Petrie than Weber. As far as ownership on these two guys go here tonight, we have Petrie fairly low at 2% actually, and we have Weber a little bit higher, up at 8%. So maybe I might have to switch things around here.
I don't know if they're comparable right there. I think I'd still go Weber. I mean, I think Weber's going to be lower.
Yeah, I'm thinking Weber's going to come in a little bit lower than the 8% that we have him. At least I'm hoping he comes in at a little bit lower. Goalies from this game. I'm not using anybody from. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I might use Holtby because he could see some volume. I'm not going to use too much of price. What do you like here?
Yeah, I don't really like the goalies from this game, but I agree with you there. If I'm going to use a goalie, it's going to be Holtby for volume. I don't like Braden Holtby. Not personally. I don't know him, but I just don't like how his game has, kind of fallen off the past few years.
Yeah, I'm with you. Not going to have much Holtby. He should get volume, but I'd want him to be cheaper for that price. I'll have a little bit of price just because I'll correlate him with my Montreal stacks. Before we get to our final game, just want to remind everybody that we do have that new Twitter account that I mentioned earlier in the session. Awesemo Nhl Dfs is our Twitter account. It's a great little. We have a great little DFS community here. I'd like to think that it's fairly even keel. We don't have a lot of people yelling at each other. We don't have too many trolls. People are actually pretty good to each other here. So head on over to Awesemo Nhl Dfs. We've got packages for anybody looking to join, starting at $3.95 a week. And we've got options for Fantasy Cruncher in case anybody wants to start crunching, 20 or even 150 lineups. We've got you covered. So Awesemo, Nhl Dfs over on Twitter. All right, getting to our final game. Arizona Coyotes going into play Vegas. Arizona currently sitting with a 2.3 implied goal total. That hasn't moved all day. Vegas sitting at 3.3. That also hasn't moved all day. No Oliver Ekman-Larsson, if I'm not mistaken. Jacob Chychrun probably going to see more minutes in his stead. Kyle Capobianco is a min-priced defenseman who should see some power play minutes for Arizona. And then, of course, there's Vegas, who should be chalk and will probably smash here tonight. So what do you have here, Josh? Do you like anything on the Arizona side, and where are you going with Vegas?
Arizona side's tough. I really want to play Jacob Chychrun just because I think now that OEL is out, he's the top guy on the left side, which I think is good for Arizona, but it's also bad that OEL's out because now guys like Jalmerson has to play more minutes, and then you got the Italian meat Capobianco, min price playing power play too, but I don't really know defensively what he's about. And their even strength lines don't really inspire any confidence. If I'm going to have to go somewhere, I probably, just from the power play correlation, go with a Schmaltz and Garland. But as a full line, as sick as this sounds, like maybe Arizona 3, Keller, Brassard, Pitlick, which Tyler Pitlick is on the power play, which is just, that's an indictment of your team in general. So for me, it's mostly going to be on Vegas here. I like the top line, Pacioretty, Stevenson, Stone. I like that Stevenson's still 4,300. Not too many people play him because they don't like him. I think if you stack them all together, you get them at lower ownership. I think that second line is going to be higher owned than the top line just because their price is way lower. Marchessault is still only 5,000. Riley Smith, 3,800. Alex Tuck also on the top power play unit now at 3,400. So I don't mind one-offing him there. The defenseman we'll get into in a minute. We were talking about one before the game, so I want to get your thoughts there.
Yeah. As far as forwards here, like I'm probably going to choke some chalk with that Carlson line. I think I can get unique enough elsewhere that I can get away with it. We'll see. It's just because they're going to be matched up against the Dvorak-Kessel line. Dvorak is fine defensively, but Kajula and Kessel are not. Like I really expect that Vegas second line to just kind of have their way with that line here tonight. So that's why I'm on Carlson, Smith, Marshall. So it's not really the price. It's more the in-game matchup, although the price is nice. One thing about Vegas is last year they kind of split between their two power play units, and that kind of gave, guys like Marchessault and Smith additional value. This year it's not necessarily been that case. Like last year they had 9 forwards within a minute of each other for power play time. This year, it's a clear separation. There are 4 forwards at about 2:45, and then everybody else is down at about a minute 30. So that's the one thing that I don't like about stacking, Marchessault and Smith here tonight, is they're probably not going to get a lot of power play time against an Arizona team, that they weren't terrible at 5-on-5 last year. A lot of that's goaltending, but I think, to really take advantage of them, you have to get some damage done on the power play. And that's the one thing that worries me about Vegas. But like I said, I'm still going with it because of the price. One way I'm going to try to get a little bit different is Shea Theodore. He's priced right alongside Alex Pietrangelo. Theodore's not on the top power play unit, but he's shooting a ton this year. He's averaging he has 12 shots on goal already this year. He started shooting a lot last year. That's kept up this year. As long as that shot bonus is in range, I don't mind paying $6,000 for a defenseman that isn't on the top power play unit, especially to get away from a chalk defenseman like Alex Pietrangelo. I'm not going to be using Robin Leonard here tonight or Fleury or whoever starts. I do have interest in Darcy Kempe. Okay. I do have interest in Darcy Kempe here tonight. Do you?
Yeah, I do. Just based off, price and the amount of shots he's going to see. I mean, he can hit the bonus, give up 3 goals, and still hit value, and he won't kill you in a GPP.
Yeah, exactly. And those are the kinds of goalies that we like. The goalies that can give up 2 or 3 goals and it won't kill their value. You just don't want him giving up 2 or 3 goals in the first 10 minutes because then he's riding the pine for the rest of the game. Defenseman, out of this game, we mentioned that Jacob Chychrun should probably see more minutes with Oliver Ekman-Larsson out. I mentioned Kyle Capobianco. That's a name that people should probably get to know because he was electric in the AHL. He had 69 points, a very nice 69 points in his last 82 games in the AHL. That's just monster production for a defenseman that just turned 23 years old in the fall. He did that as a 21 and a 22-year-old defenseman in the AHL. So, it's like I said, it's not like Arizona's going to be great here tonight, but, you can put in Capobianco and Kemper for under 10K. And I think there's good upside there. So that's kind of where I'm going for defensemen. Do you like anybody else besides, the expensive guys, the Pietrangelos, Theodores, Chycruns?
So your Jake Muzzin is my Alec Martinez. So I love playing Alec Martinez just because you throw back to that 70s line on the Kings. I always was playing Martinez with them on, the power play correlation. 4,600 is a bit pricey. I just have a soft spot, even though he did absolutely bury my Rangers in the Stanley Cup. I still play him.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. Martinez, he's one of those combo meals guys too. He can get the shots and the blocks. So I like that. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us here today. Please, please, please like and subscribe so that you'll know that when we're coming back on the air. Don't forget to ding that little bell so that you get notifications. I am Slim Cliffy, Michael Clifford. This is the GOAT. That is the GOAT, Josh Harris, in the booth across from me. Thank you very much for joining us today, and good luck in your contest tonight, everybody.